Okay, so let's just get right into this one. If you are listening to this deep dive today, I'm willing to bet you have been through the ringer at least once.
Oh, yeah, most people have.
You've probably done the whole credit repair 101 thing.
Yeah, the standard playbook.
Exactly. You pull your reports from Experian or Equifax or TransUnion. You find those nasty red marks, the charge-offs and the
The
collections.
stuff that just drags your score down.
Yeah, and then you probably even download some template letter from the internet. You cite the Fair Credit Reporting Act. You send it off by certified mail, and you wait your 30 days.
And then the letter comes back.
The letter comes back, and it just says, verified. And absolutely nothing changed.
It is honestly the most frustrating dead end in personal finance. I mean, it really feels like you are arguing with a brick wall. And the brick wall is winning.
It really does. And I think that is exactly where most people just quit. They think, well, the big three have spoken, so this must just be accurate. I guess I'm stuck with it.
Which makes sense. That's the assumption we all make.
But today we are looking at a source that claims that entire approach is fundamentally flawed. We are diving into a class promo brief. It's written by an author who goes by Residual Joe.
He's an Amazon best-selling author.
Right. And his argument in this script is basically that we are all yelling at the wrong people.
It's a classic case of shooting the messenger, really. This source material completely challenges that big three mindset. I mean, we tend to view Experian and Equifax and TransUnion as the absolute gods of credit.
Because they hold the data?
Right, they hold it, so they must be the actual source of it. But Residual Joe is peeling back a layer here. He argues that they are just the storefront. There is this hidden layer, what he calls a secret agency, or really a set of agencies, that operates entirely upstream.
Okay, secret agency. Now, I have to stop you right there because that sounds a little bit tinfoil hat to me.
I know, it really does.
Like, is he being literal here? Is there actually some shadowy organization, or is this just a metaphor for how the data moves around?
It does sound conspiratorial, doesn't it? But in the world of data furnishing, it is quite literal. He isn't talking about a government spy agency, obviously. He's talking about specialized consumer reporting agencies that exist solely to aggregate very specific types of negative data.
Like what kind of data?
Things like vehicle repossessions or telecom debts. And then those specialized agencies feed that aggregated data directly to the big three.
So let me make sure I'm getting this straight. When I see a repossession on my Equifax report, Equifax didn't actually go out and investigate that repo themselves.
Not at all.
They just brought that line item from this upstream hidden agency.
Precisely. You have to think of the big three as a newspaper. If a reporter feeds the newspaper a story with the wrong names and the wrong dates, the newspaper just prints it.
Right, they're just wrong with that.
Exactly. And you can yell at the editor of that newspaper all you want, but if the reporter keeps sending them the exact same bad info, the story stays exactly the same.
Wow, okay.
The source text argues that this hidden agency is that bad reporter. It feeds the data to the bureaus.
And if you don't fix a reporter, you really can't fix the news.
That is the core thesis right there. The source claims that because most consumers, and honestly even a lot of professional credit repair people, they don't even know this upstream agency exists, so the data just sits there. To use his exact words, it sits there untouched, unchallenged, unpaid, and uncorrected.
Which means it just keeps repopulating.
Yeah.
You could successfully delete it from TransUnion today, and next month, boop, it's right back on there.
Yeah.
Because that upstream feed is still totally active.
Exactly. The source refers to this as the root level. If you have errors at that root level, they trigger reporting violations across your entire credit profile over and over again.
Like poison in the well.
Yes. If the source water is poisoned, the whole river is poisoned. And ignoring this layer, according to the text, is the single biggest mistake people make when they are dealing with major derogatory marks like repossessions.
Okay, so we have firmly established that there is a man behind the curtain, so to speak. But let's get into the specific targets, because this source material isn't just a general fix your credit kind of guide.
No, it's highly, highly targeted.
Right, it's surprisingly specific about who this strategy is actually for. It highlights vehicle repossessions and telecom accounts.
Yeah, that grouping of targets is really fascinating. He lists vehicle repossessions, charged off auto loans, and deficiency balances. Now, that part makes total sense, right? Those are all basically parts of the exact same messy financial event.
The car goes away and the math gets bad.
Exactly. But then he just throws telecom accounts into the mix.
Which just feels like the odd one out. Why would you group a failed $40,000 car loan with an unpaid $80 phone bill?
It all comes down to how that specific type of debt is actually handled behind the scenes. Both auto deficiencies and telecom debts are these really high volume and highly contested categories, and they rely heavily on third-party data furnishers.
Okay, I see.
I mean, think about it. Telecom companies are totally notorious for messy billing right when an account closes.
Oh, absolutely. You try to cancel your internet and
Suddenly, you owe for a router you returned 3 years ago. Or they charge you for a whole extra month after you clearly canceled.
yeah, it's a nightmare.
And the thing is, those telecom companies don't usually manage that messy debt collection in-house for very long. They just bundle it up and dump it into the secondary data ecosystem.
So this hidden agency acts as a sort of clearinghouse for that very specific flavor of junk debt.
That is the clear implication, yes. It aggregates those specific high-friction derogatory marks. But honestly, the real meat of this deep dive, the part the source really focuses on, is on the auto side of things.
The repossessions.
Right. The source mentions deficiency balances and post-sale reporting. And we really need to spend a minute unpacking this because this is where the financial jargon gets incredibly sick.
Please do. Because deficiency balance just sounds like something an accountant whispers to you right before you go to prison.
It does sound terrifying.
What does that actually mean in plain English for a normal person?
It's actually just simple, really painful math. Let's say you bought a truck for $40,000. A year later, you fall on hard times, you stop making the payments, and the bank repos it.
Oh.
At the exact moment they take the truck back, you still owe, say, $30,000 on that loan. So the bank takes the truck and they sell it at an auction.
But it's a repo auction, right?
Yeah.
They aren't getting anywhere near the retail price for it.
Exactly. They're getting pennies on the dollar. Let's just say they sell that $30,000 truck for $15,000 at the auction.
Ouch.
The deficiency balance is that remaining $15,000 gap. You don't have the truck anymore, but you still legally owe the money that the auction sale didn't cover.
And so that $15,000 number is what lands on your credit report.
That is the number. And here is where Residual Joe, the author of our source text, really points out the massive opportunity for the consumer. He specifically mentions post-sale reporting.
Meaning what happens after the auction.
Right. Think about the sheer complexity of what just happened in the real world. That car was physically taken by a tow truck. It was stored on a lot. It was cleaned. It was transported to an auction house. It was auctioned off, sold. And then those specific proceeds had to be manually applied back to your original loan balance.
That is a lot of separate steps.
And there are separate fees for every single step. Fees for the tow truck, fees for the daily storage, fees for the auctioneer.
That is a literal mountain of paperwork.
It is a massive mountain of paperwork. And anytime you have a mountain of paperwork, you have human error. The source argues that this hidden agency almost always reports that final balance incorrectly.
Because it's too complicated to get right every time.
Precisely. Maybe they didn't subtract the auction price correctly. Maybe they tacked on illegal storage fees that aren't allowed in your state. Maybe, and this happens a lot, they are still reporting the full original loan amount, as if the car was never actually sold at all.
Okay, so the argument you are making here isn't I didn't buy the car or I didn't default on the loan. The argument is you guys are terrible at math.
Or more specifically, you're terrible at compliance. And this brings us right into the strategy section of the source material. The text draws a very hard line between what he calls surface-level credit tips, which is basically just begging the bureaus for a deletion, and what he calls violation identification.
Violation identification. I like that. It sounds very tactical.
It's highly tactical.
It sounds much more offensive rather than defensive.
It is entirely offensive. And the mindset shift he proposes here is absolutely crucial. Usually when a consumer looks at a repo on their credit report, they just feel this overwhelming shame.
Yeah, like I messed up. I couldn't pay my bills.
Exactly. They feel guilty. But Residual Joe is saying you need to stop feeling guilty and you need to start auditing. You are actively looking for violations of the law and how they handled and reported that data.
But what does a violation actually look like in practice? If I'm sitting at my kitchen table looking at my credit report, or I'm looking at this hidden agencies report, what exactly am I hunting for?
The source lists a few very specific angles you can take. He talks about uncovering reporting inaccuracies, identifying documentation gaps, and spotting post-repo balance issues.
Okay, let's apply that to the truck example. What is a documentation gap?
By law, in a lot of jurisdictions, when they take your car, they have to send you a very specific certified notice. It tells you exactly when and where the auction will be so that you technically have a chance to go and buy your own car back.
And if the bank or the agency forgets to send that letter?
That is a legal violation. What if they send the letter but they get the date of the auction wrong? Violation.
Wow.
What if they sell the car, but they don't apply the funds to your loan balance within the legally required number of days? That's another violation.
I see where this is going. So you really aren't arguing about the existence of the original debt at all. You're arguing strictly about the process.
Exactly. You are auditing their work. The source explicitly says most people never audit this layer, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Because the errors are everywhere.
It heavily implies that these reports are just riddled with errors because nobody ever actually checks them. The banks and these hidden agencies are just totally used to consumers rolling over and accepting whatever number they throw out there.
So if you do the audit and you find a violation, which it sounds like you probably will, then what? You just call them up and say, gotcha.
You use it as leverage. Leverage is the whole point. The key phrase the source uses is you apply pressure the right way. If you can definitively prove that they violated federal reporting laws or state-level repossession statutes, you suddenly have the upper hand in the negotiation.
Because they broke the law.
Right. You can legally demand the complete deletion of that entire account because the reporting itself is legally inaccurate.
That is an incredibly powerful pivot. You really do go from begging for mercy from a faceless bureau to demanding legal compliance from the data furnisher.
And that is exactly why he brands it as violation identification training. He's making the point that this is not traditional credit repair. This is a full-blown compliance audit. You are essentially policing the police.
But doing this effectively requires knowing exactly what to look for. You can't just guess your way through state repossession statutes. And I think this brings us to the actual nature of the source material itself.
Right, the context of what we're reading.
Because we aren't just reading an academic textbook here. This text is actually a promo brief for a live boot camp.
It is. And we really should look at that critically for a moment. Why structure this information as a live boot camp? Why not just write a blog post or sell a PDF?
Well, I mean, money is the obvious answer. But the text does really emphasize the live aspect. He uses the phrase real-time review.
There is a real pedagogical reason for that format, too. Just reading about a deficiency balance error conceptually is one thing, but physically seeing someone take a redacted credit report, circle a specific line item, and say, look, the date of last activity is February, but the auction was clearly in January, that is mathematically impossible.
Right, seeing it in practice is totally different.
Exactly. The source promises, quote, "We are reviewing reports, spotting errors, highlighting dispute angles in real time."
So he is actively trying to bridge that gap between the theory of auditing and the actual practice of it.
It certainly seems so. It directly addresses the immense complexity we were just talking about. If this hidden agency data is really as messy and convoluted as he claims, you absolutely need to see real-world examples to start recognizing the patterns yourself.
Let's talk about the tiers he's offering for this bootcamp too, because I think it gives us a really good hint about the kinds of tools required to actually execute this strategy.
Yeah, the access levels.
There's a general admission tier, just to watch. But then there's a VIP access tier. And looking at the list, the VIP list is basically an auditor's toolkit.
It really is. The source says it includes the replay of the class ebooks, dispute templates, and something called a violation checklist.
Now, that violation checklist really catches my eye.
It should catch your eye. Think about it. If you are going to act as an auditor, you have to have a checklist. Airline pilots use them, surgeons use them, and apparently credit compliance auditors need them too.
Because there's too much to remember.
Exactly. It suggests that there are so many distinct potential violations, wrong dates, incorrect balances, missing legal notices, improper fees, that you literally need a physical list sitting next to you to ensure you don't miss your leverage point.
It just reinforces the whole idea that this strategy isn't vague or based on a feeling. It's a highly technical process.
Very technical and very specific. The source text also leans heavily on standard urgency markers. Things like live February 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Secure your seat. He is deliberately building a sense of scarcity.
Sure, standard marketing tactics. We see that everywhere. But he also has this one line that I thought was interesting. He says, do not wait until after the class when people start talking about what they learned. It creates this sort of in-crowd dynamic, right? Like, there are the smart people who know about the secret agency, and then there are the suckers who are still mailing dispute letters to Equifax.
It is very effective positioning. He is actively framing the traditional Big Three approach as completely obsolete. He is essentially saying to the reader, if you aren't doing this, if you aren't auditing the hidden layer upstream, you are literally fighting with one hand tied behind your back.
And for the people listening to us right now who actually have that messy telecom collection or that painful repo sitting on their report, that message really hits a nerve.
Because it resonates with their experience.
Because they genuinely feel like they have been fighting with one hand tied behind their back this whole time.
It validates their frustration completely. It tells them, hey, it is not your fault. You failed to fix your credit. You didn't fail. You just didn't have the full map of the battlefield.
So let's zoom out for a second and bring this all together.
Mm-hmm.
We have this hidden mechanism, the upstream data furnisher feeding the bureaus.
Right.
We have the specific targets, those really mussy high-volume debts like auto repos and telecom bills.
Yeah.
And we have the core strategy, which is violation identification rather than just asking for forgiveness.
The audit mindset.
Exactly. So if we take a step back from the specific boot camp pitch itself, what is the real big takeaway for our listener today?
The fundamental takeaway is that the entire credit reporting system is a strict hierarchy. As consumers, we naturally tend to look exclusively at the bottom of the pyramid. We look at the consumer-facing reports generated by the big three because that's what we have access to.
But the data doesn't originate there. It flows from the top down.
Exactly.
And if the water is poisoned at the source,
Then the river is poisoned.
Yeah.
And you cannot filter that poison out downstream. You have to hike up the mountain and go directly to the source. This deep dive essentially suggests that for serious, sticky credit problems, you have to fundamentally change your question. You have to stop asking, how do I fix my Equifax report, and start asking, who is actually telling on me?
who is the snitch?
Who is the snitch, exactly.
When the snitch isn't Equifax.
Yeah.
Equifax is just the town gossip spreading the rumor.
Right. The actual snitch is this hidden agency handling the post-sale reporting on your old truck. Or it's the third-party debt buyer handling your canceled cell phone bill from 4 years ago. The strategy here isn't to try and convince the gossip to stop talking. The strategy is to demand the receipts and prove that the snitch is a liar.
Or at the very least, to prove that the snitch is completely incompetent.
And that's the beautiful part. In the eyes of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, incompetence is legally just as good as a lie. If that upstream agency cannot report the data 100% accurately and fully compliantly, they aren't supposed to be allowed to report it at all.
That is just a really empowering shift in perspective. It stops being a conversation about begging for forgiveness for your past financial mistakes.
Which is exhausting.
Right. And it starts being a conversation about holding massive corporations accountable for their present-day paperwork mistakes.
It completely turns the tables. And honestly, in the current complex data landscape, that is probably the only viable way to win. You just have to be more detailed and more rigorous than they are.
You know, this whole conversation about hidden agencies feeding unseen data into our lives, it's honestly a little unsettling.
It's the reality of the modern world, unfortunately. We are all just data points to them.
But it leaves me with this lingering thought. We spent this entire deep dive talking about a hidden agency specifically for car loans and phone bills. But simple logic dictates that this business model probably isn't unique to just those two industries.
Oh, absolutely not. It's a highly profitable model.
So here's the question for you to chew on while you drive to work today or while you're doing the dishes. If there is a hidden, specialized agency out there aggregating and feeding data about your old car loan data that dictates your current financial reputation, how many other hidden agencies exist for the other areas of your life?
It's a great question.
I mean, is there a hidden agency quietly aggregating your medical history? What about your auto insurance claims? Or your apartment rental history?
Well, we actually know those exist. You have the specialized tenant screening bureaus. You have the medical information bureaus. They are all out there operating upstream, feeding the wider system.
Exactly. So if you are only ever looking at the surface, if you're only checking the big three, what other massive data feeds are out there right now defining who you are to the world that you have simply never been told to audit?
It's the iceberg theory of data. We only ever see the tip.
Something to really think about the next time you blindly scroll through a 60-page terms and conditions screen and just click agree. Thanks for joining us on a deep dive today. We will see you next time.